you, sir.
Hello.
You're the Union Negotiator for United Food and Commercial Workers Canada, Local 401, representing all Albertan employees. You were on with us just recently when the rumblings about this potential job action at Superstore started. And at that time, you used the word slavery in comparing their, in describing the work agreement that the employees have with the parent company, Loblaw. So how are we today? Give us a little update on the situation.
Well, good morning, Aaron and Roger. I don't think that's exactly accurate or in context, but having said that, we can talk about that some more. Employees have now province-wide cast their ballots for a strike. When we last spoke, we were only speaking about Edmonton and Calgary. And Edmonton had indeed...
97% in Calgary, 97%. And I hate to cut you off, but I do want to move the conversation along a little bit quicker. So what other jurisdictions have now voted?
Well, we've had votes now out of Grande Prairie, Fort McMurray, Camrose, Lloydminster, Red Deer, Medicine Hat, and Lethbridge.
Are we waiting on any more?
No, I hope I'm not missing anyone. But certainly all of the locations outside of Edmonton and Calgary that have superstores have cast their ballots, and the result of that ballot is 93% in favor.
Okay, so more or less the same as the 97% that voted for job action in Calgary and Edmonton.
It certainly parallels the same figure in some of those locations. In one location, the vote was as high as 98%. One vote was slightly less than 90%, but the average is about 93%.
Okay, so what is next then? Is it time to give 72 hours notice, or is there more negotiating going on right now?
Well, certainly, as you rightly point out, under Alberta law, we can be on strike on 72 hours notice. We reserve the right to do that, but the point of a strike vote is not to have a strike, but to garner leverage to get the employer's attention, to send them a message that over 9 out of 10 of your employees are dissatisfied with the employment relationship, and to ask them to take the issue seriously. So there's some additional bargaining now scheduled for the week of September 16th. I do not anticipate a dispute before that time, but that's all other factors being equal.
Okay, so we're still, as the landscape looks right now, we are driving towards no major job action for at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah, all other factors being equal,
yeah.
We would prefer not to have a dispute. It's already a difficult shopping circumstance in the current superstore environment, and it will be chaos if there is a dispute. And we're trying to avoid that best we can, but we're trying to send a message to Galen Weston that he has to turn his attention to his hardworking staff.
Now, why did you take exception to me using the word slavery off the top of this? When we last spoke, you used the word slavery. You invoked the image in describing the working relationship between Superstore employees and Galen Weston Jr.'s company, Loblaws, prompting Aaron and I to then make a comparison between the guy who puts the celery on the shelf and Kunta Kinte from the film Roots.
If you actually review the transcript, you're quite incorrect in fairness, and if I could explain, I was talked over a fair bit last time. What we talked about was Bangladesh and the Joe product that are for sale in the superstores. So Joe, many people are familiar with their clothing items that are for sale in those superstores. It is, in fact, the largest clothing brand in the country with annual gross sales in excess of $1 billion. And those are sourced from places like Bangladesh. And we're all aware of what happened there, and I actually quoted the Pope himself, who described conditions in the Weston Loblaws factories in Bangladesh as being akin to slave labor. Now, what I would suggest what's happening in Alberta is this endless pursuit of profit has put the company out of balance. And we debated a little bit. Well, I actually didn't debate with anyone last night. I heard a diatribe about the nature of capitalism. And capitalism ought to be fair. It ought to be balanced. I mean, no one advocates for the kind of capitalism that we saw at the turn of the century. No reasonable person believes that that's the kind of system that we ought to have. We're
right.
We're a very wealthy province, and there's plenty to go around, so everyone can have a reasonable standard of living, including superstore employees.
Now, this is where we start to get into the gray. When you say reasonable standard of living, how is that defined? When President Barack Obama came out a few weeks ago and said that the idea that pop stars are perpetuating, that everybody can have, a Mercedes-Benz, a jet plane, a tiger on a gold leash, that is what people should aspire to, is corrupting people's idea behind work. So what is a reasonable quality of life as defined by UFCW?
Well, certainly to be able to have reasonable access, and the word reasonable is an important word, and
that's why I'm asking that.
And there isn't a black or white, but to be able to have access to housing, to be able to work for and aim towards buying your own home or condominium, to be able to put food on your table, pay for tuition, and achieve the goal of a reasonable and fair and relatively comfortable retirement. Not everyone's going to be able to grasp and get a hold of the Mercedes or the yacht or all of those goodies that the stars have. But what Superstore employees, interestingly, are actually embracing the entrepreneurial spirit, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And what they've said is, look, capitalism is indeed about going out and pursuing more and doing as well as you can, and that creates wealth and competition, and that's a healthy thing. And we're using our collective bargaining strength to pursue those various things. I don't really understand why it's okay for Donald Trump to be a capitalist, but it isn't okay for Superstore employees who yearn for a reasonable standard of living, and they sell their labor in the markets, and they're acting collectively to do a little bit better in the market. In Calgary and Edmonton, province of Alberta, 200,000 people moved here last year. The population is growing. There's lots of room for expansion in the grocery industry. There's lots of wealth. And there's no reason why these people should not be able to pursue a higher standard of living for themselves and their families.
Well, don't you think it's being capitalist by taking part in capitalism, taking a job that you agree to under certain terms, and then in turn allowing those price forces rather to keep the cost of living in check? I mean, the one thing that we never ever seem to come around to whenever we speak to somebody who is from the the union front or the workers front is basically that we talk about the cost of living, and you talk about attaining a reasonable lifestyle and whatnot. If the cost of labor increases, so too does the cost of goods and or services. And when the cost of goods and services increases, the cost of living increases. So at some point, doesn't the UFCW just look at the whole situation and go, we should probably try to suppress our wage demands because it's just making things more expensive?
Well, what you state is an economic fallacy. It is not automatically true that a reasonable standard of living for your workers necessarily drives up the cost of goods. So Loblaws, the company that we're actually talking about, certainly operates some non-union stores in the province of Alberta where the goods are the same price or actually higher, even though they're paying the employees 30 or 40% less. So your assumption is just plain incorrect and an economic fallacy.
Well, I've never known the cost of labor increases to lead to a cost of decrease on the price of goods.
It is a factor in an employer. Labor is a factor in an employer's costs, but there's a plethora of other factors depending on the kind of business you're in, depending on everything from what you're paying your CEO, how you're approaching your shareholders if you're a publicly traded company, the cost of real estate, the goods that you're accessing from third parties. There are innumerable factors that go into the price of anything that we buy in the marketplace.
Okay. So at the end of the day, then, you were asking, if I can sum it up like this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you were asking Galen Weston Jr., who is the monarch of the Loblaw brand that owns Superstore, to be more forthcoming in redistributing wealth down the chain a bit to the employees who work in his stores. You'd like to see them paid better because the corporation itself does quite well.
That's in part true, and particularly in the area of hours that I pointed out in my last interview, where an employee's paycheck is we have an 85% part-time constituency in your workforce, where an employee's paycheck is not just driven by their hourly rate, but the number of hours they receive. And slashing and cutting those hours in recent years, and we've tracked kept them at superstores has led to a bad customer experience and a bad employee experience, and it's a bad business model in its current format. It's just not sustainable. The employees are trying to save this business.
Okay. Do you know how much money Galen Weston made last year?
Well, I know he's the second richest. He comes from the second richest family.
Do you know how much money he made last year?
Yeah, it's on greedygalen.com. It's certainly in the billions in gross, and all these are publicly traded figures. But we're talking about billions. 15 million people every week shop at the Loblaw store. He's doing very well. Certainly was able to buy Shoppers Drug Mart for more than $12 billion. He bought T&T Supermarkets. He bought a new bakery called Ace Bakery. And I could go on and on. They're pretty much as profitable and rich as someone can get.
They've done well. Tom, do you share your salary with the public?
My salary is a matter of privacy legislation in this country.
Yes, it's just a yes or no question. Do you share your salary?
Actually, it isn't. I share my salary with my clients, the people that I represent. Do you share your salary with the public, sir?
No, I don't.
Yeah, so neither do I, because I have a contractual relationship with Superstore employees in the union. They are my clients. I work hard for them every day to give them a voice on station.
But they know how much money you make. That's my question. I just want to know if they know how much money you make.
Oh, certainly. Yeah,
okay.
Certainly. And if they don't, they have access to it.
Where's that access?
Well, the access is through our relationship with our members.
No, because there's people that are listening right now. Yeah, I'm asking you to tell them where they can go to find out how much money you make.
They can come out to a union meeting, and they can review our financial statements. We report directly to our membership about our financial relationship. It's not a public matter, and I'm sure people understand that. You understand that. Your salary is not public. I'm not gonna ask you. Your listeners may well be interested. They're all tuning in. They're in a way contributing to the profitability of Chorus, the corporation that you work for, and they might have an interest in how much you make and whether or not they want to tune in.
Well, they might, but the difference, very big difference,
You have a private contractual relationship with your employer that's governed as well by privacy legislation. And privacy is an important right.
There's no doubt that privacy is an important right. Now, truth be told, it's not my policy that I don't share my salary. I would have absolutely no problem doing so. But, things around here, they say, and in most private business, it's it's uncouth to share it. But I'm just suggesting this to you, that the people who pay me know how much money I make, and the people who pay you, I wonder if they in turn know how much money you make. And it's the right to know. And you've cleared that one up for us, Tom. There's really no more questions for us to ask. We've had a great interview, and I certainly appreciate you coming on again with us to give us an update on the Superstore.
I'm happy to stay longer and talk with you guys anytime about the issues.
Okay,
and
thanks.
Again, I wish you both you, Aaron, and Roger success and with your new efforts.
All the best. Thanks very much, Tom.
Thank you.